subject, which is table topics. We have Pete Fordham, right? That's house, right? And Pete did give me a little thing about President Eisenhower. Dwight Eisenhower didn't plan to run for president. His name was entered in the New Hampshire primary ballot by Senator Henry Cabot Lodge without his permission, but he won anyway over Taft, and the rest, of course, is history. So here we go with Pete.
So I'm going to read you a letter, part of a letter. And just remember, this letter it's 8 years after the Gulf War has ended. It's from George H.W. Bush to the mother of Brian McGrath. Your thoughtful son, Brian, wrote me a very nice letter about you, and it appears I owe you an apology. Brian tells me that during the Gulf War, when he was serving on the USS Thomas Gates, you wrote me a letter of support, which was never acknowledged. Remember, this is 8 years later. Belated though this is, I want to first apologize for not having written to thank you for your letter. We received thousands of wonderful letters during that time. It was simply not possible to respond to each one. I'm going to skip the middle part due to time. So I hope you forgive me, Mrs. McGrath, for not having written sooner. Just know that this former Commander-in-Chief, now happy private citizen, appreciates your family's patriotism and support. 8 years later, he wrote that letter. Can you give me a story or something you remember about George H.W. Bush? Mary Alice.
Thank you. Two things. The first thing that came to mind was that whenever President Bush was president and I heard his voice on the radio, I got mad. And now I think, why? Goodness. When you compare, well, the other thing was at the very beginning of the Gulf War, I was outraged. I thought at the time, didn't we learn anything from the Vietnam War? I was sure that the Gulf War would get us into an eternal morass the way the Vietnam War did. And my son would have been of draft age if there had been a draft. And so I hatched a plan that our whole family would move to Canada to prevent our son from getting drafted. That's my memory.
I'll read you one more thing. President Donald Trump announced Saturday, this is last Saturday, that he's picked a battle-hardened commander who oversaw troops in Iraq and Afghanistan to be the nation's top military advisor. If confirmed by the Senate, General Mark Milley, who has been Chief of the Army since August 2015, would succeed Marine General Joseph Dunford as Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. A native of Winchester and a fervent supporter of the Red Sox and other city teams, Milley received his Army commission from Princeton and went to Belmont Hill School, and that's where he was my classmate in my class of 78 people. Dunford, the outgoing chairman, was born in South Boston and raised in Quincy. He graduated from BC High School and went to the Tufts University's Fletcher School. So shockingly enough, the last two Joint Chiefs of Staff are from Massachusetts, this rabid military state that we have. So we should be very proud of our veterans. Please tell me something about a veteran you know. Arthur.
Thank you, Pete. I'm going to take you back to World War I. World War I is being commemorated right now because it's 100 years ago. The memory I have is my great uncle. He was my mother's uncle. He was one of 13 born to my great grandparents on my mother's side. His name was Pincus Weiss. I met him when I was very small. He passed away, and I wound up getting a rucksack from World War I with a gas mask in it, and it said on the outside, United States Expeditionary Force 1918. And I wish I still had the rucksack. I don't know what happened to it, but it was quite a thing. I used to use it actually because I did experiments when I was a kid where I wanted to wear a gas mask. Pete.
I'm assuming I should stop.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's it.
Well, we're stopping at 12:55.
No, we have to stop earlier today.
We'll save 5 minutes. Save 5 minutes.
That was well done, Pete. Whenever I